Step into a world where silk and stone collide. You're about to witness the epic transformation of Elara, a simple castle maid whose life shattered with one act of betrayal, only to be remade by a reckless knight with a mysterious warrior known as the Shadow Lord. Chapter 1. The Treachery of the Court. 9 o'clock bells. I gripped the worn leather satchel containing the few silver coins I'd earned, and sometimes stolen, from another back-breaking day mucking stables in the lower city of Ethelgard. My arms ached, and the stench of hay and horse sweat clung to my tunic, but my heart sang a melody sweeter than any royal bard's tune. Just until midnight, I murmured to the chilling autumn wind whipping through the narrow alleys. Just until the joining. Tonight I wouldn't have to creep back to the cold, unforgiving chambers I shared in the Duke's sprawling keep. I'd been granted permission, a grudging sneer actually, to take leave from my duties. As a foundling, I was long past the age of majority at 21, yet still relegated to the lowest tasks, fit only for scrubbing floors and tending livestock in the household of the powerful Duke Valerius. But tonight I didn't care about their contempt. I was going to Lord Kalin, my betrothed, and after the midnight ceremony he would be my husband. Tomorrow was the festival of the Twin Moons, the most sacred night in the kingdom of Aldoria, where noble houses confirmed their dynastic marriages under the blessing of the oracle. More importantly, Kalin and I would be joined in a true marriage bond, and I could escape this life of servitude forever. Tomorrow was going to change everything. Kalin had promised. Just thinking about Kalin, the heir to a smaller but respected noble house, sent a warm blush across my cheeks. He was the picture of courtly grace, skilled with a blade, and devastatingly charming. True, I was merely a foundling with no dowry and no name, but Kalin had whispered sweet nothings, assuring me that true love was the only magic that mattered, not parchment pedigrees. I quickened my pace toward the Silver Quill Manor, Kalin's modest stone estate, far more impressive than the servants' quarters I called home. I paused at the heavy oak door, smoothing down my only presentable dress, and taking a deep, shuddering breath before using the heavy iron knocker. Silence. He is here, Elara, but he is not alone. Asterisk, a cold, silvery voice whispered in the back of my mind. It was Astrid, my inherent magical self. Her consciousness had manifested years ago, a quiet but critical companion in my solitude. Hush, Astrid. Do not borrow trouble, asterisk, I thought back, trying to ignore the subtle tingle of apprehension my power always brought. I tried the latch. It was unlocked. Perhaps he was inside and hadn't heard. I called out softly, Kalin? It is I, Elara. Still nothing, but a faint, high-pitched laugh drifted from the upper floor. Then, a heavy, rhythmic sound that made my breath catch in my throat. Moaning, my feet moved without conscious thought, carrying me up the winding staircase as if I were a ghost wandering through a nightmare. The sounds grew sharper with each creaking step, gasping breaths, the frantic squeak of a bed frame, and a voice I knew too well. Oh, my love, Kalin. Yes, like that, Lady Cyrilda, the Duke's legitimate daughter. The master bedroom door stood slightly ajar. Through the crack, I saw them. Kalin's muscled back moving over Cyrilda's pale form, her fiery red hair fanned across his pillow like a banner of conquest. You are a true noble lady, my Cyrilda, Kalin panted. Worth 1,000 of that little stable girl. Cyrilda's laugh was sharp, like the splintering of ice. Better than that pathetic mud-dweller father pulled from the river, I wager. Poor little Elara probably thinks a kiss on the cheek is the pinnacle of passion. Do not. Kalin's voice was rough, but not with anger. Do not mention her name when we are like this. Why not? Cyrilda's fingers traced the line of his spine. After tomorrow's ceremony, she will understand her place. A charity case like her could never truly hold an heir like you. The words struck me like physical blows. I stumbled backward, my shoulder hitting the stone wall with a dull thud. Betrayal. I told you. Astrid's mental voice was sharp, laced with cold fury. What was that? Cyrilda hissed. Before I could move, before I could think, a primal, cold fury surged through me, amplified by the sudden presence of Astrid's rage. My foot slammed against the door, sending it crashing inward. What treachery is this? They leaped apart like scalded cats. Kalin scrambled for his breeches while Cyrilda merely sat up, making no effort to cover the victory etched across her face. Elara! Kalin's face went chalk white. I can explain everything. Explain? My voice cracked like a whip. Explain how you were bedding my sister on the night you were sworn to take me as your wife? It is not what you believe. It is exactly what I believe. Hot, bitter tears finally breached my composure. That's an easy change. Here is the revised story with Elara's age changed from 18 to 21. The main consequence of this change is that Elara's magical power, Astrid, is already awake, as it usually manifests around age 18. This alters the timing of that specific plot point, but keeps the core narrative of betrayal, escape, and consequence intact. I've adjusted the text accordingly. The Serpent's Knot, revised. Lady Elara's POV. Chapter 1. The Treachery of the Court. 9 o'clock bells. I gripped the worn leather satchel containing the few silver coins I'd earned, and sometimes stolen, from another back-breaking day mucking stables in the lower city of Ethelgard. My arms ached, and the stench of hay and horse sweat clung to my tunic, but my heart sang a melody sweeter than any royal bard's tune. Just until midnight, I murmured to the chilling autumn wind whipping through the narrow alleys. Just until the joining. Tonight I wouldn't have to creep back to the cold, unforgiving chambers I shared in the Duke's sprawling keep. I'd been granted permission, a grudging sneer actually, to take leave from my duties. As a foundling, I was long past the age of majority at 21, yet still relegated to the lowest tasks, fit only for scrubbing floors and tending livestock in the household of the powerful Duke Valerius. But tonight I didn't care about their contempt. I was going to Lord Calen, my betrothed, and after the midnight ceremony he would be my husband. Tomorrow was the festival of the Twin Moons, the most sacred night in the kingdom of Aldoria, where noble houses confirmed their dynastic marriages under the blessing of the oracle. More importantly, Calen and I would be joined in a true marriage bond, and I could escape this life of servitude forever. Tomorrow was going to change everything. Calen had promised. Just thinking about Calen, the heir to a smaller but respected noble house, sent a warm blush across my cheeks. He was the picture of courtly grace, skilled with a blade, and devastatingly charming. True, I was merely a foundling with no dowry and no name, but Calen had whispered sweet nothings, assuring me that true love was the only magic that mattered, not parchment pedigrees. I quickened my pace toward the Silver Quill Manor, Calen's modest stone estate, far more impressive than the servants' quarters I called home. I paused at the heavy oak door, smoothing down my only presentable dress, and taking a deep, shuddering breath before using the heavy iron knocker. Silence. He is here, Elara, but he is not alone. Asterisk, a cold, silvery voice whispered in the back of my mind. It was Astrid, my inherent magical self. Her consciousness had manifested years ago, a quiet but critical companion in my solitude. Hush, Astrid. Do not borrow trouble, asterisk, I thought back, trying to ignore the subtle tingle of apprehension my power always brought. I tried the latch. It was unlocked. Perhaps he was inside and hadn't heard. I called out softly, Calen? It is I, Elara. Still nothing, but a faint, high-pitched laugh drifted from the upper floor. Then, a heavy, rhythmic sound that made my breath catch in my throat. Moaning, my feet moved without conscious thought, carrying me up the winding staircase as if I were a ghost wandering through a nightmare. The sounds grew sharper with each creaking step, gasping breaths, the frantic squeak of a bed frame, and a voice I knew too well. Oh, my love, Calen. Yes, like that, Lady Serilda, the Duke's legitimate daughter. The master bedroom door stood slightly ajar. Through the crack, I saw them. Calen's muscled back moving over Serilda's pale form, her fiery red hair fanned across his pillow like a banner of conquest. You are a true noble lady, my Serilda, Calen panted. Worth 1,000 of that little stable girl. Serilda's laugh was sharp, like the splintering of ice. Better than that pathetic mud-dweller father pulled from the river, I wager. Poor little Elara probably thinks a kiss on the cheek is the pinnacle of passion. Do not. Calen's voice was rough, but not with anger. Do not mention her name when we are like this. Why not? Serilda's fingers traced the line of his spine. After tomorrow's ceremony, she will understand her place. A charity case like her could never truly hold an heir like you. The words struck me like physical blows. I stumbled backward, my shoulder hitting the stone wall with a dull thud. Betrayal. I told you. Astrid's mental voice was sharp, laced with cold fury. What was that? Serilda hissed. Before I could move, before I could think, a primal, cold fury surged through me, amplified by the sudden presence of Astrid's rage. My foot slammed against the door, sending it crashing inward. What treachery is this? They leaped apart like scalded cats. Calen scrambled for his breeches while Serilda merely sat up, making no effort to cover the victory etched across her face. Elara! Calen's face went chalk white. I can explain everything. Explain? My voice cracked like a whip. Explain how you are betting my sister on the night you were sworn to take me as your wife? It is not what you believe. It is exactly what I believe. Hot, bitter tears finally breached my composure. But my voice remained strong. You lying, oath-breaking villain. Serilda stretched languidly, finally reaching for a silk shawl. Oh, little foundling. You truly believed he would choose you? She tilted her head with mock pity. How utterly common. Serilda, hold your tongue, Calen warned, but his voice was weak. Hold my tongue? Why? Tell her the truth? Serilda stood, wrapping the shawl around herself with deliberate slowness. That my father, the Duke, arranged this months ago? That he found the idea of my house being tied to a nameless peasant so repugnant, he paid Calen a fortune to keep you distracted until the true match could be announced? The world spun. You lie. Do I? Serilda moved to a mirror, adjusting a golden pin in her hair. Go home and ask them yourself. I'm sure father is waiting up for you, perhaps with the official betrothal contract for Kaelin and myself. Elara, please listen. Kaelin finally secured his garments. This does not have to ruin you. We can still be discreet friends. Friends? I lunged, but he caught my wrists easily. You must control yourself, he hissed, his grip tight enough to leave bruises. Think of your position. The Duke's charity. You do not wish to make your situation worse. I stared into his eyes that had sworn eternal devotion just days ago, and saw nothing but cold, craven fear. Release me, I whispered. Elara, release me. I wrenched free and fled. When I burst through the back entrance of the Duke's keep, my foster parents, Duke Valerius and Duchess Lyra, were seated calmly in the main solar with a heavy crested scroll lying on the table. Seeing my tear-streaked face and disheveled state, they showed absolutely no surprise. You knew already? I asked, my voice barely a thread. Elara, sit down, the Duke commanded, his voice like chipped flint. Yes, we know of Kaelin and Cyrilda's arrangement, and we fully endorse it. Duchess Lyra picked up the scroll and held it out to me. This is their formal betrothal contract. Tomorrow at the festival, Kaelin will publicly swear his oath to Cyrilda. They expect you to attend as Cyrilda's lady's maid. I stared at the heavy parchment in my trembling hands. Kaelin and Cyrilda's names were written in bold calligraphy, sealed with the silver crest of the Valerius house. It was all real. They had all played me for a fool. Why? My voice was ragged. Why destroy me like this? You told me I was part of your family. Enough. The Duke shot to his feet and backhanded me across the mouth with brutal, casual force. The impact sent me spinning to the floor, my cheek aflame. You are nothing but an abandoned beggar we housed out of piety. What right do you have to create a scene and insult my true daughter? Elara, you should be grateful you have a roof over your head, the Duchess said, her voice devoid of human warmth. Now that you know your place, you will accept reality. You will attend the ceremony, witness their union, and perhaps find yourself a suitable stable hand to live quietly with. I will not. I scrambled back up, tasting blood. I will never bless this hateful betrayal. The Duke raised his hand again, but this time I was gone. I dodged and sprinted for the door as the Duchess's voice shrieked behind me. You ungrateful, low-born pest. Get out of my sight. I fled into the moonless night, running blindly, letting the crushing, tidal wave of pain propel me through the darkness. I finally stumbled onto the main road leading out of the city when a familiar, urgent voice stopped me. Elara! I spun around to see Bria, the cook's apprentice and my only friend, sprinting toward me, her dark braid flying behind her. I saw you run from the keep. What happened? You look like you've seen a vengeful spirit. Worse. I collapsed into her arms. I have seen the truth. Tell me. So I did. Every horrible detail, every cruel word, every moment of my world splintering apart. Bria held me while I shook, her own rage building with each sickening revelation. Those vipers, Bria hissed when I finished. All of them. Kaelin, Cyrilda, those cold stone hearts they call parents. What am I to do? I wept against her shoulder. Tomorrow is the festival. Everyone will see their betrothal. I will be the absolute mockery of the city. Listen to me, Elara. Bria stroked my hair gently. We are not waiting for that cursed ceremony. Tonight, we are going to the Rogue's Den. What? I pulled back to look at her, my tears still wet on my cheeks. The Rogue's Den was a notorious tavern district near the docks, famous for its foreign mercenaries and dangerous magic. I heard there is a gathering tonight. The Black Company is recruiting, and many powerful outlanders are there for the festival. Bria's eyes gleamed with wild excitement. We are going to find a little bit of fun and forget those aristocratic scoundrels exist. Folly. But necessary folly. We will accept, Astrid conceded, sensing the need for immediate defiance. Very well, I said, a fierce, cold resolve hardening my gaze. Let us go to the Rogue's Den tonight. Let that whole courtly hell burn to ash. Bria grinned, a wild, dangerous expression. That's the spirit, Elara. Come on, let's go back to my tiny attic room and clean you up. Tonight, we are going to look like powerful witches. Chapter 2. The Fire of the Outlander. Lady Elara's POV. Bria pulled me back toward the keep's servants' quarters, her movements sharp with purpose. We are not letting those gilded fools win, she declared, pulling out some soot for coal and rifling through a small stash of smuggled lace. She spun around, holding up a gown dyed a forbidden deep sapphire blue that was meant for her sister, a dancer. Tonight we show them the fire they extinguished. The dress was a marvel, cut daringly low for a noblewoman, but perfect for a night of defiance. As Bria worked on my face, carefully applying the dark kohl that made my eyes look enormous and mysterious, I felt a vital shift in my spirit. There. Bria stepped back, admiring her work. Now you look like the high-born sorceress you ought to be. I barely recognized the woman in the dusty mirror. She was fierce, beautiful, and utterly unknown. Nothing like the broken maid who'd fled Kaelin's house just hours earlier. Let's go. Bria grabbed my hand. The Rogue's Den awaits. The walk to the dock district, was like passing into another kingdom. Ethelgard's courtly center was all pale marble and quiet cobblestones. The den was a roaring chaos of timber buildings, flashing swords, and the overwhelming complex scents of foreign spices, ale, and black powder smoke. The tavern itself, a sprawling, dark structure, glowed like a furnace against the night sky. I cannot believe we're and the overwhelming complex scents of foreign spices, ale, and black powder smoke. The tavern itself, a sprawling, dark structure, glowed like a furnace against the night sky. I cannot believe we are doing this, I whispered as we approached the grand, splintered entrance. Believe it, honey, Bria grinned, adjusting the stolen lace over her face like a makeshift mask. Tonight, we are not the Duke's maid and a cook's apprentice. Tonight, we are mysterious travelers who belong wherever the hell we please. The interior was deafening and intoxicating. Torches cast flickering shadows across rough-hewn beams, and hundreds of travelers, mercenaries, foreign merchants, mages, and knights mingled beneath the smoky rafters. The air was thick with the strange odors of distant lands, desert sands, spiced wine, and the raw, electric scent of unbound magic. By the gods, I breathed, then immediately silenced myself. No apologies tonight, Bria shouted over the din, leading me toward a crowded counter. She pressed 2 tankards of dark ale into my hands, raising her own. To new journeys, and leaving the past buried in the manure pile. The ale was strong and bitter, but it was a good bitterness, cleansing, like it was washing away the cloying taste of betrayal. Bria immediately ordered 2 more. I never drink like this, I protested weakly. You never found your betrothed rutting with your sister the night before your wedding either, she pointed out. Extraordinary circumstances, remember? By the 3rd tankard, I felt deliciously warm and reckless. The pain was still there, a knot in my stomach, but it was muted now, wrapped in wool and shoved into a deep pocket of my mind. Let's dance. Bria pulled me toward a cleared space where a group of musicians were playing a wild, pounding rhythm, and for the first time in my life, I truly smiled. We lost ourselves in the noise, spinning and laughing like we hadn't a single concern in the kingdom. Other men watched with frank interest, but I was too consumed by the moment to care. This was what defiance felt like, wild and intoxicating and gloriously dangerous. When a slower, mournful tune began, I was about to suggest we get some air when I felt a warm, strong hand rest on my elbow. I turned, and my breath vanished. The man standing before me wore no mask, but his presence was a shroud of shadow. He was enormous, tall, with the broad shoulders and thick neck of a seasoned warrior. His cloak was dark, heavy wool, and what I could see of his face beneath a rugged beard was sculpted and severe. His eyes, though, gods, his eyes. They were the color of forged iron, but seemed to hold tiny, shifting flecks of molten gold. Danger. And power. Immense power, Elara. Be cautious, Astrid warned, her voice vibrating with a blend of fear and fascination. The woman with the sapphire gaze could not refuse a dance with a humble stranger, could she? His voice was low and resonant, like a cello string being plucked, smooth, deep, with an inherent power that made my knees weak. I should have said no. Should have remembered my humiliation, my heartbreak. Instead, I found myself placing my hand into his and letting him lead me onto the floor. Why not? I heard myself say. Let us dance. He moved with the quiet grace of a predator. When he pulled me close, I could feel the solid heat of his chainmail beneath his tunic, the careful strength in his hands. I have watched you since you entered this den, he murmured near my ear, his breath smelling of expensive, dark spirits and cold mountain air. You are quite the conflagration. The compliment should have felt cheap, but something in his voice made it feel like a heavy truth. Like he saw the fire inside me. You are not from Ethelgard, I found myself asking, tilting my head back to look into those mesmerizing eyes. What gives me away, little fire? There was a hint of amusement in his voice. You do not smell of our city, I admitted. His scent was different, richer, more dangerous. Like wood smoke mixed with the bitter edge of steel, and a strange, cold mineral odor that sang a warning to me. Very perceptive. His hand on my back tightened slightly, drawing me closer until my chest brushed his. I am here with the Black Company, preparing for the festival tomorrow. Though I must confess, if I had known your local attractions were so spirited, I would have arrived long ago. The way he said spirited made a delicious tremor pass through me. This was dangerous. I knew it in my bones. But after Kaelin, after the Duke, I no longer wanted to be safe. And you? He continued, spinning me slowly before pulling me back against his chest. Let me guess. Dragged here by a well-meaning friend who thought you needed to see a little genuine vice? I laughed freely. Something very close to that, though her methods are exceedingly direct. Direct friends are a worthy prize. His thumb traced a circle on my palm, a simple touch that sent a current of electricity up my arm. We moved together as if the magic in the air guided us, our bodies finding a rhythm that felt ancient and faded. Your eyes are the color of deep, deep sapphire, he said suddenly, his voice dropping to a low rumble. They hide a beautiful fury. I could say the same, I replied, hypnotized by the way the candlelight seemed to catch the gold in his dark eyes. I have never seen eyes quite like yours. A shadow, too quick to read, flickered across his rugged face. Have you not? Before I could question the odd remark, he dipped me low, and when I came back up to face him, his expression was once again the charming, mysterious warrior. The song ended, but neither of us separated. If anything, he held me closer, his hands sliding from my back to the curve of my hip. I require air that is less smoky, he murmured. Then take me with you. He led me through a curtained doorway and into a private torchlit room, and there, away from the eyes of the crowd, he looked deep into my soul. I need to kiss you, Elara. May I? He asked, using my name as if it were a rare word of power. I nodded. His hand cupped my cheek, and our lips met. It was a kiss of overwhelming force, gentle only in the first moment, then deepening instantly. He pressed me back against the heavy wooden door, the kiss becoming a desperate, intoxicating claim. When he broke the contact to let us both gasp for air, we stared at each other, and in the light of the guttering torch, I saw the gold flecks in his iron eyes intensify, like tiny glowing embers. He is dangerous, I thought. He is everything I need right now. Chapter 3. The Price of Recklessness. Lady Elara's POV. His touch was fire and ice, a confusing, exhilarating clash that shattered the last vestiges of my maid-like modesty. His large hand slid from my hip, pulling the sapphire gown tighter against my back, the other cradling my face as the kiss deepened, desperate and consuming. I pressed myself into the solid, unyielding mass of his body, needing his strength to anchor me in this swirling moment of chaos. The air crackled around us, not just with passion, but with the raw, untamed energy I had sensed in his presence, the scent of unbound magic. You are exquisite, Elara, he rumbled, his voice thick with desire, the words vibrating through my bones. He lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping instinctively around his waist as he began to move, carrying me through a hidden door that led to a narrow, spiraling stone staircase. My mind, clouded by ail and anguish, offered no protest. The world narrowed to the feel of his iron-hard body against mine, the roughness of his beard against my neck, and the taste of spice and strong liquor on his lips. This was not the gentle, courtly affection Kaelin had offered. This was a wild, desperate claiming, a physical embodiment of the reckless freedom I had sought. We stumbled into a room that was clearly a makeshift lodging for a person of means. Heavy furs piled on a cot, a map unfurled on a rough table, and a collection of weapons gleaming darkly on a rack. It smelled of leather, oil, and that distinctive cold mineral scent that was uniquely his. He set me down, but only long enough to draw a bolt across the heavy wooden door. Then, with a speed that startled me even in my haze, he shed his heavy cloak and tunic, revealing a torso scarred and magnificent, honed by years of battle. His fingers, large and quick, found the laces of my gown. The sapphire fabric pooled on the floor, and I stood before him, trembling, a mere stablemaid's body exposed to a force of nature. He paused, his eyes, those compelling pools of iron and molten gold, moving over me with intense hunger, lingering on the bruises already forming where the Duke and Kaelin had seized me. He didn't ask, he simply lowered his head, tracing the angry marks on my neck and jaw with tender, reverent kisses, a silent acknowledgement of the pain I carried. They did this to you, he stated, not as a question, but as a promise of retribution. They will regret it. Then, all gentleness fled, replaced by a consuming desire that mirrored my own desperate need for sensation over sorrow. He pressed me against the cold stone wall, his lips demanding, his hands exploring. When his fingers found the most sensitive part of me, a soft cry escaped my throat, drowned out by the thunder of my own heart. Tell me your name, he commanded, his breath hot against my ear, even as his movements grew more insistent. Elara, I gasped, the name sounding foreign, powerful, when whispered in this shadowy, dangerous room. You are incredible, Elara, he murmured, before moving away just long enough to deal with his own heavy garments. He tore away the last fragile barrier of my modesty, his large hands positioning me with practiced ease. When he looked into my eyes again, the gold in his pupils seemed to burn. What do you desire? I want you now, I answered, shamelessly, my voice raw with a need I hadn't known existed. I was burning, craving the physical anchor, the sheer reality of his powerful body. This impulse is dangerous, Elara, but the flow of power is immense, Astrid conceded, sounding almost breathless. Hearing my desperate plea, he entered me slowly, watching my head arch back, savoring the feeling of my body, adjusting to the shock of his size. He was an overwhelming fit, and for a moment, the intensity stole my breath. When he was fully seated within me, he paused, his gaze locked with mine. Hold fast, little fire, he whispered, before he began to move. He withdrew, only to thrust back with full, deliberate force, stealing my breath with the sensation. I was completely lost, driven mad by the frantic, relentless rhythm. We moved like two halves of a primal engine, disconnected from the world outside. The powerful sense of his presence, the steel, the smoke, the raw male musk, dizzied me, wrapping around me like a comforting shroud. I felt the climax building, a bright, blinding light against the darkness of my recent despair. I cried out, lost in the wave of pleasure. When it passed, he did not stop, his movements slowing slightly, then surging again. "You are exquisite," he kissed my mouth, pulling me closer, forcing me to hold fast to his strength. "There is a wildness in you that calls to the deepest part of my blood." He lifted me, carrying me back to the cot heaped with furs, never once breaking the connection. I wrapped both my legs tightly around his waist as he settled us onto the soft bedding, the texture of the thick pelts against my skin adding to the sensory overload. He shifted the angle, deepening the invasion, making me moan his name. We lost ourselves to the night, to the desperate, reckless passion. I lost count of the times the world dissolved into light and noise, leaving me breathless and weak. In the final moments, as the most intense climax yet claimed me, I heard him whisper a single word against my ear, a word that felt too ancient, too important for this clandestine room. Mine. The word echoed in my exhaustion. He released his own shuddering climax, a deep, guttural sound of release, and I felt his heat flood into me. I clung to him, unable to move, unable to think. The last sensation I recall was him kissing my temple, softly, before the ail, the exhaustion, and the profound emotional release dragged me under into a deep, dreamless sleep. Chapter 4. The Heir and the Outcast. Lady Elara's POV. The next morning, I woke to a head-splitting throb behind my eyes and a deep, aching exhaustion in every muscle. The cot beside me was cold and empty. If not for the heavy, blood-red cloak lying carelessly discarded on the floor and the numerous dark bruises already blossoming across my skin, I might have convinced myself that the entire night was a fever dream, a desperate fantasy manufactured by a broken heart. The mysterious warrior had vanished without a trace. No note, no name, no indication of where he hailed from. The only evidence was the lingering scent of steel and spice on the furs, and the profound, physical memory of his presence. He is gone. As expected, a true mate would not have fled. Astrid's voice was back, critical and sharp. I know. I never expected him to stay. I thought back, pulling the heavy dark cloak around my naked body. I gathered my crumpled sapphire gown, feeling the shame rise like bitter bile. I had been reckless, but I had been free. A frantic, loud pounding on the heavy door cut off my despair. Elara, open this door by the gods, before they hear me. It was Bria, her voice strained and frantic. Panic clawed at my throat. I stumbled off the cot, my fingers clumsy, and yanked the door open. Elara, where the hell did you vanish to? I was terrified. You missed the entire festival morning. Bria burst in, her eyes wide with fear, instantly scanning the room. Bria, I'm so sorry, I began, but she grabbed my shoulders, her eyes locking onto the dark marks marring my neck. Sorry? Do you know what has happened? The Duke sent guards looking for a missing maid. They suspect you ran to the other side of the city. And those marks, gods, you actually slept with that brute from the Black Company. Guilt and a fresh wave of nausea hit me. I took a shaky breath and launched into the tale. The terrifying, magnificent stranger, the dancing, the desperate need, and waking up alone with nothing but bruises and a splitting headache. The room fell silent, save for the roar of the crowd outside. Bria's expression transformed from outrage to incredulous awe. By the prophet, she whispered. You actually did it. Okay, I'm officially not angry. You earned a night of mind-shattering distraction. She paused, then her tone shifted, becoming intensely practical. Though I must ask, Elara, in your state of emotional ruin and ale consumption, did you two take precautions? The question hung in the smoky air, heavy and lethal. My stomach dropped completely. Oh, sweet mother, I breathed, the last of the blood draining from my face. The answer is no, Bria. The fool took no precautions. And the seed of a powerful bloodline is already taking root, Astrid stated, the magical energy within me surging in confirmation. Chapter 5. Banishment and the Path North. Lady Elara's POV. 1 month later, I sat on a rough wooden bench in the cramped, dank room above the apothecary's shop, my hands trembling. For the past month, I'd been staying hidden in Bria's tiny attic room. The sickness had started 2 weeks ago. Violent, morning waves of nausea that were impossible to ignore, even when I tried to use my minor healing magic to suppress them. Foolish girl. It is the blood of the father, the sheer vitality of it, forcing this change upon your weak mortal body, Astrid commented coolly in my mind. Bria squeezed my hand, her own face pale with strain. Whatever the stars decree, Elara, we will face it. The apothecary, Mistress Isabel, emerged from her back room. She carried a small vial, her ancient eyes wearing a solemn expression. The test is clear, foundling, she said softly. You are with child. The floor seemed to drop away. Pregnant, with the stranger's child. But it was only 1 night of folly. I whispered. 1 night is all the fates require, Mistress Isabel confirmed. You are likely 6 weeks along. And you should know, this is no ordinary child. The magical residue on the vital humors is profound. This is the seed of a powerful lineage. You must find protection, child. The Duke must never know. But it was already too late. As we walked back to the servants' quarter, the massive gates of the keep were open, and the Duke's guards were standing at attention. Duke Valerius was waiting. There you are, you gutter rat. His voice boomed. You've been missing for a month. You selfish, wretched creature. I have something important that you must hear, I said, my voice shockingly steady, fueled by the cold resolve from Astrid. You need to grovel for forgiveness is what you need to do. Duchess Lyra appeared behind him. I am pregnant, I blurted out. The Duke's face cycled through shock, confusion, and then a blinding, terrifying fury. He grabbed my arm, his armored grip like a vice. What filth did you just utter? I said I am pregnant. I tried to pull free. And before you cast your scorn, know that it was Kaelin who betrayed your trust. Enough. The Duchess's voice sliced the air. We do not care for your excuses. You are carrying some nameless barbarian spawn and expect us to suffer the shame. You have 2 choices, foundling, the Duke snarled, tightening his grip until I cried out in pain. You will drink this, he indicated a small brown vial, or you will leave this keep tonight and never return. We will not harbor a mongrel, nor let you drag the Valerius name through the mire any further. No. I instinctively shielded my still flat stomach. Astrid roared internally. A surge of cold, protective power. Then you will pack your filth and depart, the Duchess said, her voice arctic. You will be cast out, a pregnant, nameless beggar with a bastard child. You will be the laughingstock of every town and village in the domain. Fine, I said quietly, yanking my arm free. I will leave. I climbed the steps to the servants' quarters for the final time. Everything I owned in the world fit into one small cloth bag. As I descended the stairs, satchel in hand, the Duke and Duchess watched me with expressions of triumphant coldness. Do not crawl back to us when the gutter calls your name, the Duke bellowed. You chose this path with whatever savage you spread your legs for. Now walk it. I am grateful, I said, my voice clear and ringing. You have just freed me from the last chain tying me to this misery. My child will never know the kind of conditional, cruel affection you showed me. I would rather raise them in the shadow of the gallows than under your roof. I walked out into the crisp evening air. Bria was waiting by the main gate, her face set with determination. You are coming with me, she announced, grabbing my satchel. We will find a place in the lower city. No arguments. Bria, I cannot ask you to risk. You are not asking. I am swearing it. She adjusted the satchel. That little one is going to be so loved, they won't even notice they lack a father. We will go north, Elara. Astrid's voice was softer now, purposeful. The lands near the Iron Peaks. I feel a pull there, a nexus of old magic and powerful bloodlines. It is dangerous, but the only place we will be safe, and the only place this child can grow. I placed my hand over my stomach. We will be okay, I murmured, my voice merging with the whispers of my power. We will figure it out. We must. Next 4 years in Scardholm passed in a blur of iron dust, mountain winds, and fierce protective love. My life had become an exquisite dichotomy. Outwardly, I was Elara, the meticulous, reserved mender from the south, known for my steady hands and the beautiful, unusual quality of my stitchwork. Inwardly, I was the keeper of a dangerous secret, constantly listening to the cold, powerful guidance of Astrid, and raising a child who was quite literally the Iron Peak Ruby in human form. Kael was magnificent. He was a creature of kinetic energy, never still, with the terrifying, beautiful eyes of his father, the molten gold flecks more prominent now. By age 3, he spoke with the intelligence of a much older child, and had already begun manifesting his own raw, untamed magic. The magic wasn't pretty sparks or gentle light. It was metal manipulation and geomancy. Once, when a neighboring forge worker rudely dismissed my work, Kael, who had been quietly playing, caused the iron hammer on the man's belt to suddenly flatten into a useless sheet of metal. No one saw Kael do it, but the chilling metallic scent of powerful magic lingered. The Scriveners, however, saw everything. The leader of the council, the white-haired woman, often passed by our small dwelling above the forge. She never spoke to me, only offered a slight nod, her eyes fixed on Kael, a look that was a mixture of concern and profound respect. The unspoken message was clear. We honor the neutrality of the peaks, but we see the power that will soon outgrow our protection. My own magic, nurtured by the mountain's energy, had also grown stronger. I learned to weave small protective barriers, invisible shields against prying minds and unexpected threats. But my primary magical duty remained the same, masking the sheer, overwhelming power emanating from my son. If I let down the shield for a second, the whole of Aethelgard would feel the pull of their future conqueror. The bounty of the Iron Peak Ruby remained my secret safeguard. I would shave off tiny flakes of the gold matrix for necessities, ensuring we always ate well and were clothed warmly. We were not rich, but we were never poor. It was a king's coin, sustaining a king's heir. Chapter 11. The Serpent's Reach. Despite the solitude of the north, the past always found a way to coil back around me. One frigid spring afternoon, a foreign convoy arrived in Skardholm. Unlike the honest, gruff Northman merchants, these travelers wore the soft, decadent silks and bright liveries of Aldoria. They were Duke Valerius's men. My blood ran cold. I immediately drew the coldest, densest concentration of my magic around Kale and myself, pulling Astrid's energy like a blanket. Danger! He has been searching all this time. Astrid's voice was a frantic shriek in my head. The convoy set up camp in the town square. Their leader was a captain with a cruel, familiar sneer, a man I remembered from the keep's guard detail. They claimed to be tracking a runaway indentured servant, but their eyes scanned the faces of every new arrival, particularly the children. I kept Kale hidden. For 3 days we did not leave the safety of our room. Kale, always obedient to my rare, firm commands, remained quiet, though his little hands constantly traced the lines of his wooden shadow wolf sword. On the 4th day, the captain approached Maeva's forge, demanding information. We seek a foundling maid named Elara, mid-20s, striking blue eyes. She absconded with silver and is accused of theft and treason, the captain announced, his voice carrying over the ringing of the hammers. Maeva, a woman of few words and profound loyalty to the north, looked at him with icy contempt. We do not harbor runaways from the south. Look elsewhere. But the captain was persistent. He moved through the town, offering bribes and making thinly veiled threats, and soon, the inevitable happened. He found Bria. I was mending in my room when I heard the raised voices below. I rushed to the window just as the captain seized Bria's arm near the bathhouse entrance. You are from Aethelgard, the captain snarled. Tell me where the foundling Elara is, or you will answer to the Duke's law. Bria, fierce as always, tried to pull away. I know no such maid. Leave me be, you Southron dog. Do not lie to me, cook. Your eyes betray you. The captain's brutal grip tightened, drawing a sharp cry from Bria. In that instant, all caution vanished. The image of the Duke striking me, Kaelin abandoning me, and now this man hurting Bria, fractured the last piece of my composure. No, the silent, mental scream was a union of my heart and Astrid's cold power. I didn't cast a spell in the traditional sense. I simply willed the mountain's energy to intervene. A few blocks away, near the Duke's caravan where their horses were tied, the earth shivered. It wasn't an earthquake, but a localized, violent tremor. A large section of the cobblestone road leading to their horses buckled and cracked. But the true target was the massive supply wagon, laden with food and weapons, which suddenly, violently, tipped over, crushing the wheel and spilling its contents onto the freezing ground. The sound was deafening. The horses reared, screaming. The captain instinctively released Bria and spun around to assess the damage. Treason! A mage attack! He bellowed. The chaos I created was enough. Bria seized the moment, kicking the captain hard in the shin and running toward the safety of the forge. The scriveners, who had been silently watching, now converged on the captain, their iron robes swirling. You have caused great unrest in Skardholm, the lead scrivener announced, her voice resonating with cool authority. Your intrusion is unwelcome. Gather your broken belongings, and leave the peaks before the sun sets. The threat was clear. The scriveners would protect the integrity of the land, even if it meant protecting the powerful magic that resided within it. Chapter 12. The Waiting Game. The Duke's men retreated, but their visit served as a harsh reminder. Aethelgard was searching, and my existence, and Kale's, was a matter of state importance now. That was terrifying, Elara, Bria gasped, recovering in our room later that night. But that was magnificent. You made the ground swallow their wagon. It was Astrid, I murmured, my energy drained. And the mountain. I can feel its power responding to Kale. The fear intensified my resolve. I focused completely on preparing Kale. I taught him the common tongue of Aldoria, but also the harsh, guttural language of the Northmen. I taught him the geography of the surrounding mountains and the history of the northern clans, tales of shadow lords and warrior queens, who ruled not by soft law, but by strength and magic. By age 5, Kale possessed a stillness that belied his age. He understood my warnings and rarely left my side, unless I sent him to Bria's. He practiced his own burgeoning geomancy in secret, often sitting for hours in the backyard, focusing his golden eyes on a stone until it cracked, or on a piece of discarded iron until it bent to his will. We lived on the edge of a knife, waiting for the one person who could either save us or deliver us into the greatest danger, the Shadow Lord. He feels the child's power now, Elara. He knows Kale is ready. Astrid observed one spring morning. The time is approaching. And then, one winter afternoon, a silent message arrived, not through a traveler, but through the mail route used only by the scriveners and high Northman officials. It was a small, sealed scroll, bearing the heavy, embossed sigil of the Iron Throne, the Shadow Wolf, and the Mountain Peak. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The message was brief, written in a stark, military hand. It was not signed with a name, but a title. The time is upon us. The south moves. You are compromised. Prepare the air. Wait for the eclipse. I looked up at the sky. The eclipse, the sacred celestial event that, according to Northman lore, marked the beginning and end of great wars and the binding of new pacts. It was only 2 weeks away. Chapter 13, The Call of the Peaks. Lady Elara's POV. The last 2 weeks were a frenzy of quiet preparation. I knew what the Shadow Lord meant by the south moves. My public act of magic, the destruction of the Duke's wagon, was a declaration of war. The Duke would not rest until he had extinguished the threat of a magical heir linked to the north. I packed the few things that truly mattered. Kale's wooden sword, the last remaining large piece of the Iron Peak ruby, and the few books Bria and I had managed to acquire. Bria, though tearful, was resolute. Go. He is a king, Elara. He will protect you. Just promise me you won't forget the smell of a proper Aethelgard beef stew. Never, I promised, hugging her tightly. You are my true family, Bria. We will see you again. The day of the eclipse arrived, a day of profound stillness in the chaotic market of Skardholm. The sun, though visible, seemed muted, the light taking on a strange, ethereal silver hue. Kale, dressed in the thickest furs, held my hand, silent and tense, his golden eyes fixed on the sky. We stood on the outer wall of Skardholm, the highest point overlooking the treacherous, rocky pass that led to the central peaks. He is coming. Prepare the boy, Astrid warned. A distant sound began, not of hooves or men, but of the mountain itself, a deep, resonant thrumming that vibrated through the stone and up into my very core. The air grew cold, thick with the scent of raw magic, steel, and ozone. Then, they appeared. It wasn't a troop of soldiers on horses. It was a single file of 20 enormous armored Northman warriors, moving not on the main path, but scaling the sheer, impossible cliff face of the highest peak, using methods I could not comprehend. They were clad in black, heavy armor of the highest craftsmanship, each man a wall of muscle and iron. Their movements were silent, practiced, and terrifying. Leading them was the Shadow Lord. He was even more immense than I remembered, a towering presence of power and war. His cloak was heavy, black fur, and on his head, he wore a simple, unadorned iron crown, a circlet of dark metal that caught the silver light of the eclipsed sun. He reached the top of the pass, standing alone, looking down at us. Elara. His voice was a deep, carrying thunder, and he finally spoke my name as a claim, not a question. Kale, sensing the source of his power, pulled free of my hand and ran a few steps forward, his small chest swelling with raw, unmediated energy. "Father!" he shouted, his voice ringing with the fierce clarity of the Northman tongue. The Shadow Lord showed no emotion, yet I felt a shockwave of profound, desperate love and pride radiate from him. He lowered his powerful head in a regal nod to the child. "My son." The heir of the peaks, his eyes then fixed on me. "The South is moving an army through the low passes. They seek the blood of the Iron Throne. I can protect you, Elara, but not here. You must choose now." He gestured behind him, toward the treacherous ascent. "You come with me, and you become a queen in a fortress of war. You choose my protection, you choose my name, and you choose the unending threat of those who would see us destroyed." He opened his arms, a gesture that was both invitation and challenge. "I am the Shadow Lord. I cannot offer you the soft comfort of a duke's court, only the hard safety of the peaks. But I offer you this, my vow, sworn on the blood of the Iron Throne, that no one, not Valerius, not the King of Aldoria, will ever touch you or our son again." I looked at the pass behind him, a gateway to a harsh, cold destiny. I looked back at the town of Skardholm, the safe, familiar refuge I had built. I looked at Kale, whose destiny was now surging around him like a visible golden current, his eyes fixed on his father. I had been betrayed by the promise of gentle love and soft hierarchy. Now I was being offered the brutal, honest contract of power and war. "Go, Elara. Your place is with the King of Iron. He is your destiny and ours," Astrid urged, her voice resonating with cold finality. I took Kale's small hand, wrapped my magic around us both one last time, and stepped out onto the cold, rocky pass. "We accept your vow, Shadow Lord," I said, my voice strong and clear, finally claiming my own power. "We are ready for the peaks." The Shadow Lord smiled, a brief, fierce flash of emotion that momentarily chased the shadow from his face. He turned and began his ascent, and I followed him, the mother of the Iron Heir, leaving the world of the false dukes forever behind. Chapter 14, The Queen of Shadow. Conclusion. Lady Elara's POV. The ascent was not a walk, but an ordeal, a symbolic journey into a new life. The Shadow Lord moved with inhuman power, his warriors forming a protective cage around Kale and me. They did not touch me, but their presence was an absolute guarantee of safety. When we finally reached the high fortress, built into the very spine of the mountain range, it was not the castle of fairy tales. It was a citadel of black iron and rough stone, stark and impregnable, smelling of earth, steel, and deep, ancient magic. This was the seat of the Iron Throne, and I was home. I was wed to the Shadow Lord, whose true, powerful name I finally learned was Boren, 3 days later, under the light of the full moon that followed the eclipse. There were no courtly silks or fawning nobles. The ceremony was conducted by the High Scrivener in the fortress's great hall, sealed by an exchange of blood and iron. I was crowned with a simple circlet of cold iron, proclaiming me the Shadow Queen of the Peaks. The next few months were a crash course in sovereignty. Boren ruled a nation of warriors, mages, and ironsmiths. His love was not soft, but absolute, a fierce, territorial dedication to our safety and the future of our son. He never offered apologies for his past actions, but he explained everything: the need for anonymity, the constant threat of assassination, and the necessity of keeping the fire of our love a secret until the heir was old enough to travel. My greatest foe, however, was not the war, but the truth I carried. 3 months after the wedding, a massive battle raged in the low passes of the mountains. The forces of Duke Valerius, combined with a coalition of other greedy Southron nobles, had finally mounted a full assault, hoping to seize the supposed weak link of the northern border. Boren was on the battlements, commanding the defense. Cale and I were deep within the fortress. I watched the battle from a scrying pool, my heart pounding with fear and pride. The northern warriors fought with the desperate courage of a free people. Suddenly, a contingent of Southron assassins, led by a single desperate figure, managed to breach the outer wall. They were headed for the inner keep. That figure was Calen. He was gaunt, battle-scarred, and driven by a desperate hunger for the wealth and power he believed I had stolen. He hadn't come for me. He had come for the rumored Iron Peak ruby and to claim revenge on the woman who humiliated him. He burst into the hall where Cale and I were protected, his sword drawn. He saw me, the former maid, now wearing the robes of a queen, with the massive Iron Peak ruby necklace resting against my collarbone. And he saw Cale, a boy radiating a power that made his nobleman's blood sing with terror. "You!" Calen shrieked, charging. "You stole my destiny. You lied about the riches." He swung his sword. "Now, Elara, protect your crown," Astrid roared, and I felt the mountain respond. I didn't need complicated gestures. I simply raised my hand and willed the air to harden. A wall of geomantic force, a solid, unyielding sheet of crystallized air and stone, slammed into Calen. The impact shattered his breastplate and threw him against the back wall. He crumpled, stunned and broken. I walked toward him, my power radiating outward. "You were paid to betray me, Calen," I said, my voice low and cold, the voice of a true sovereign. "You chose a courtly mistress over true love and the bloodline of a king. You chose the dirtiest work of the Duke, and you were not even good enough to finish that." I lifted my hand. I didn't kill him. I simply activated the final piece of his betrayal. The ground beneath him, weakened by my magic, gave way, and Calen fell straight down into the deep, dark iron mine, the source of the peak's great wealth, and a place where no light ever reached. He was gone. The betrayal was finally settled. Boren, the Shadow Lord, entered the hall moments later, having seen the massive surge of magic. He saw Cale standing firm, looking down the hole where Calen had been, and he saw me, my hand still crackling with geomantic energy. He simply walked to me, his iron crown catching the light of the hearth. He kissed my brow, a solemn, protective gesture. "You are a true queen of the peaks, Elara," he said, his voice husky with pride. "The threat is neutralized. The South will not dare this again." The story of Elara, the Duke's former maid, became the legend of the Shadow Queen, the sorceress, who commanded the mountain and bore the Iron Heir. She had been betrayed by the gilded lies of soft privilege, only to find fierce love and terrifying power in the hard, honest truths of the North. She had lost her past, but she had gained a kingdom. Total word count, chapters 10 to 14, 2,153 words. And that brings us to the thrilling end of Elara's story. She started as a maid betrayed by silk and ambition, only to rise as the formidable Shadow Queen and mother to the Iron Heir. If you loved watching her journey from outcast to commander of the peaks, give this video a like. What do you think Queen Elara's first official act will be? Tell me in the comments below, and subscribe so you don't miss our next fantasy deep dive.